Good evening, we are live, and tonight I'm joined by some of the smartest and most influential people in the energy transition, and they are eager to debate. And we're debating here in the hallway where engineers of the future are educated to build the world of tomorrow. My name is Diederik Jekel, I'm a physicist, the moderator of this evening, and I welcome you here at the Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands.
And I'm Georgie Barrat here at the world-renowned Imperial College London. I hope you'll join in the discussion too. This is the Great Energy Debate.
I am an electrical engineer.
I lead Shell's gas and new energies business.
I'm a professor in energy systems.
I'm a writer and speaker.
You've seen the strength of feeling around the world.
The time to act is now.
What's next in the energy transition? The Great
Energy
Debate.
The Great Energy Debate.
Welcome to the Great Energy Debate. Before we go to our panel, we would like to let you know that we'd love to hear from the people here in the audience at Delft, but also in London at the Imperial College in London, but also from you at home via Twitter. And to get this communication rolling, this flow of information, I need somebody else. The queen of the Twitterverse, Remel.
Hello, I am in the nerve center of the Great Energy Debate, and I'm going to be bringing you all of the social media updates from you, so please do get involved using #EnergyDebate. Now, we've currently got a Twitter poll that is live right now, and it is which of these can best tackle climate change. We've got capturing CO2 with 30%, we've got switching coal to gas with 15%, more renewables with 41%, and greater efficiency with 14%. Like I said, get involved, use #EnergyDebate, and I will see you shortly. Over to you, Diederik.
Thank you so much. Now it's time to meet our panelists. And first of all, I'd like to start with, well, somebody you have to start with. You would need a professor of energy, and luckily we have one.
Hi, my name is Paulien and I'm a full professor here at Delft University of Technology. I also head the Delft Energy Initiative, which hosts about 1,000 people in energy research. I'm Dutch. And I'm a mother of 3 kids, ages 14, 12 and 9. And I live in Delft and I work in Delft. And I love to cycle to work. And that's when I see what we need to change about this world. We need to change our energy consumption and we need to change the way we produce our products and our plastics. I'm really passionate about my energy research and about teaching our young students here in Delft about energy and the energy transition. Because I really feel it is time to change the world. We need to move away from fossil fuels, and we are in a hurry. What I would like to get out of the debate tonight is this sense of urgency to change the world and to inspire all of you to get into this game. I'm really excited to join the panel, and I am ready for the Great Energy Debate.
Thank you, Paulien, for these feisty words to kick off this debate. We would like to give each of the panelists a very difficult task. We will ask them a question and they have 60 seconds to answer it. And that's just all. A music will start and you just will be blunt. It's sort of a quick fire round, and your question is, are we doing enough to shift away from fossil fuels onto renewable energy sources? You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. The easiest answer, I think, would be no, we will never be doing enough until we are there. The more complicated answer would be that we need to do more in research, in application, in field labs, in just getting our thing going, in just doing stuff. What I see very often is that we stick to our labs and find even better catalysts, even better membranes, and just work in the lab. I think we need to do more research, always. I'm a professor, we need to do more research. But we also need to go faster and do more in terms of field labs, implementation, getting implementation in the industry. The other thing I think we really need to do more is educate the new people. And fortunately, we are at TU Delft, and our core business is research and education. And I think we need to educate way more students for this new energy field in the world. The changes are huge, and we need as many people as we can possibly create here in Delft and at Imperial College.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paulien. And thank you also for hosting this debate at Delft.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you so much. Now, energy is also a business, and the man who combines this passion and energy with a business sits next to me.
I am Maarten Wetselaar, and I lead Shell's gas and new energies business. I'm Dutch, and I work here in The Hague and live here with my family. Now, what am I passionate about? What drives me every day? Providing the world with more and cleaner energy is one of the biggest challenges that we face today. And I'm thrilled to be working on that challenge. There are multiple solutions available today to start tackling that problem. Generating more of our electricity from solar and wind, but also displacing coal-fired power plants by natural gas-fired power plants. But we can also become a lot more energy efficient, and we should also offer cleaner transport solutions to our customers. Now my question is, are companies like Shell doing enough to tackle that problem? I look forward to answering that question and many more at the Great Energy Debate.
Maarten, thank you for being here. Yesterday, this might be a bit of a Dutchy question, but yesterday was a famous Dutch satirist and comedian who said something about the travel hack by Shell, the program which just uses wonderful electric cars, and they just said, why not use the train? Wouldn't that be a cheaper sort of commercial? What do you think?
I think it was very funny what he did, and it's good to see that we can also laugh about the energy transition, but it's also a very serious topic. And of course, trains and electric cars will both be needed to get our mobility to the platform it needs to be on.
Yes, because let's get to your 60-second question. If the world is to achieve net zero emissions, we need more electricity from cleaner sources. Otherwise, the trains and the electric cars won't work. What is Shell doing to make this happen? You have 60 seconds. Go.
Well, Shell is really changing to become an all-round energy company that wants to help its customers reduce their carbon emissions. In order to get there, we will need to build a massive clean and electricity business. And we're doing things such as building large offshore wind farms in the North Sea and offshore United States, building large solar parks, again in Europe and the US as well. But we've also become already the largest provider of charging points to electrical vehicles in Europe, with more than 40,000 now installed. And in the UK, we sell renewable electricity to more than 1 million customers. And we hope to bring that business to the Netherlands shortly and to other countries around the world. So by becoming a clean electricity company as well as an oil and gas company, we hope that we give our customers options to decarbonize their lives. At the same time, charity starts at home, of course, so we need to work hard on the emissions of our own installations and vehicles and platforms and refineries. And if we do both, we can make a significant contribution to the net zero target that the world is after.
Okay. Thank you so much. Before we go to our other two panelists, we would really like to remind you at home, we would love to hear from you as well via the interweb Twitter thingeries. And for that, we go back to Remel.
Yes, hello. Everyone is getting interactive using hashtag energy debates. And we put up a question on the Twitter, which was, which of these can best tackle climate change? It's changed already. So capturing CO2 is at 31%, switching coal to gas is at 14%, more renewables is at 40%, and greater efficiency is at 15%. And of course, everyone is getting involved with the comments as well. Katrina said, there is no debate. You need to redirect all your energy into renewables and leave the oil in the ground. So definitely getting involved there. Also, we've got someone by the name of FNV_TV. They said carbon capture storage should be a mandatory technology. So people are very vocal at home using hashtag energy debate. But also there's a question, and this is to all of the panel. What about nuclear power? And does it have a role in the energy transition?
Well, I assume that we will get to that. It's a very good question and an interesting topic. I think we should go to our third panelist, and that's a person who knows everything about the science and technology and how it can help us.
My name is Ozak Esu. I am a chartered electronic and electrical engineer from Nigeria. As BRE Smart Buildings technical lead, I am responsible for research into solutions around tackling the challenges faced in the adoption of Internet of Things and wider technology within the construction industry. I am particularly passionate about energy. I grew up in Nigeria with limited access to electricity, and I have first-hand seen the impact that has on the country's economy. My dream for the future is to contribute towards a collective effort that tackles the challenges we currently face in energy and we will face in the future. It's a great opportunity to share ideas, experiences, and perspectives, and also a unique way to engage young people in the discussions and solutions towards addressing the problems we currently face within the energy industry. Tackling these questions together is why I'm excited to be taking part in the great energy debate.
I said everything. That might be setting the bar quite high.
Very, very high.
But at least enough. And we have a very wide 60-second quick-fire question for you as well. What is the role of technology and engineering in the future of energy? You have 60 seconds, I'm afraid. Go.
In the future of energy, I see technology and engineering delivering affordable and accessible electricity to all and energy to all. Like I mentioned in my video, I grew up in Nigeria with limited access, so affordable electricity is something most countries in the developing world are concerned about. I see technology playing a key role in better management of consumption within buildings and within homes currently, as we have. I see it being crucial in the cleanup process, the decarbonization of our current energy production. Technology will be key in the distribution and also the alternatives, the solutions we could come up with. I think technology will be very important as well for energy management systems. So battery storage for the alternative systems, we're looking at forecasting, predicting demand and responding to demand as well. Trading of energy, those are the key areas I'd see would use technology quite a lot in the future.
For our fourth person here on the panel, he's a journalist, so watch out what you're saying.
I'm Marco Fischer. I'm a journalist, writer and speaker on the energy transition. I write articles for newspapers and magazines in both the Netherlands and in Belgium. I authored a book called The Energy Transition, in which I'm trying to make sense of all the arguments made when it comes to our climate policy. As a journalist, I started out writing for a green magazine, writing a lot about green energy, sustainable businesses. I learned there are some fantastic things going on there, but I started to doubt whether we'll get there with the green technologies that are available currently. I think it's still good to be questioning solar energy and wind energy, as they're simply not sufficient enough currently to provide energy for a growing world population in a world economy that's still growing. I hope for the debate tonight we'll make clear that the energy transition is a tough one. Solutions provided are not always so simple. I think we should be open to all options, including ones that we may not like. We need to get going with a lot of solutions that are out there and keep working on energy innovation to provide clean energy for all. Tonight, I hope we can take a pragmatic look at the energy transition and all the challenges ahead during the great energy debate.
I'm afraid that cats aren't really climate Okay. But
A climate neutral cat we have.
Yeah, a climate neutral cat. It looked very cute though. So you are somebody who writes a lot about eco modernism and about big themes as how we should conduct pretty much everything from farming to energy to all those things. Can you explain in 60 seconds what eco modernism is and how it could save our planet?
So eco-modernism is a pragmatic approach to environmental problems such as climate change or biodiversity loss. It repeats the traditional green message of reducing the human impact on the natural world. But eco-modernists believe that we will not get there by harmonizing with nature, but by modernizing, because it is by becoming modern that we're actually able to find the better technologies, cleaner technologies to support a modern lifestyle. And this is something we wish for billions of more people to enjoy the lifestyle that we have. We should not do that with fossil fuels because that is polluting and it is changing our climate. So we need to find better ways to support a high energy planet for all, so we have a clean and green planet and prosperity for all.
Amazing. Inside the time. Right. Thank you so much. Please give a big round of applause for our 4 panelists. So there is just one more thing we need to discuss, and that has to do with our audiences here at Delft and in London. They are fitted with some sort of pedals, green ones and red ones. And so when we have something to discuss, we might throw it to you and in London. So if I were to say, for instance, the Delft University of Technology is the best university in the world, this will happen, and I'm very curious what in London. And can we switch to, yes, of course, yes, excellent. So this we'll be checking in for the show for less informal questions, but thank you so much. Green when you agree and red if you disagree. So let's get this debate on the road and start it with our first question. And in Holland, and I think it's something you see across the globe, things are changing a little bit in the debate. We see more climate activism. We see this also with young people, with children skipping school, not because they don't like school, but because they want to address the problem of climate change. So the first question we can debate is, have recent climate activism and school strikes had any impact in the Netherlands? If so, how? Who wants to start with this? Sure, Marco?
I think the biggest impact is that it will be more on the political agenda. Then again, in the Netherlands, it was already pretty high on the political agenda. I sometimes worry that the activists paint a picture that is a bit too easy, if you will. If you listen to climate activists and the strikers, it sounds like there are a few bad guys out there in big corporations, in politics, who mess up things for us, the rest. And I think that's not really fair to say. I think climate change is the unintended consequence of us wanting a modern lifestyle, and we're all part of it, basically, and we cannot just point to the guys up there who may make wrong decisions.
Some people might argue that corporations know things maybe and should be doing more things because of it's good for society instead of money. Or is that something you cannot blame?
No, I will agree there. We need to find cleaner technologies. I think government has a strong role to play, actually, in getting cleaner energy initiatives. So it's something we should definitely do. But we shouldn't forget that it's like 80% of the energy we use in the world comes from fossil fuels. This is a world economy with countries that are so interconnected with each other, with mechanical, industrial processes that are based on fossil fuels. It's not something we can change very easily. It is something we should change and we should work on.
But you cannot stop overnight.
It won't be, no, that won't be possible.
Right, does anybody have anything to?
Diederik, Can I add two thoughts? One is I do think it's had a real impact. In the UK, for example, you may recall that the last act of the May government was to declare 2015 net zero a target. And you can't see that separate from this very significant Extinction Rebellion and other societal unrest that preceded that decision in the months before that. Another example would be that increasingly we see very major corporations come to us. We have a very large clean electricity business in the United States. And we see big corporations with big brands come to us and say, we need to be voluntarily procure clean energy 24/7 urgently, because we worry that our customers will stop buying from us.
They don't
so
like
I think
it.
that societal pressure is making change, not just in politics, but also with people that buy energy. And I think that is the most important thing, perhaps to follow up just on what Marco was saying. I absolutely think business has a big role to play in creating the future, but it does need to produce things that customers want to buy. If we produce things that customers don't want because they're too expensive or they're too far ahead of their time, then we can't live. And so it's an interplay between society, government and business that needs to get this energy transition going.
Sure, companies don't need to go bankrupt, of course. I mean, that won't solve anything, maybe, but you could say that maybe profits could be a little bit less, or is that not how it works?
I think one of the important things that I'm trying to do with the new energies business in Shell is to actually prove that you can make money in the energy transition. And it's important, not just because our shareholders want dividend and all that's also important, but also because the energy transition needs tens and tens and hundreds of billions of investment. That investment will only be made if there's a commercial model, if there's actually a profit to be made. There's a wall of money waiting out there to invest in the energy transition, but we need to prove it's commercially viable. So it's actually quite important that we, it doesn't have to be, stupidly profitable, but if it doesn't make any money, then that investment won't follow.
Okay, right. Do universities change in this? Are they changed?
No, maybe not necessarily changed. During the last year, we had a TUDelft theme. It was on climate and climate action. And I think let's say the public outrage on climate change may not have set that as a theme for us. We have seen this, this problem, it's on the top of our agendas, but it helped us in getting the message out, in incentivizing students to become more active. We currently have a plan to reduce CO2 emissions of the entire TU Delft and our campus. And I think also importantly, it may also have, I hope at least, I have no evidence this is the case, that it may also attract more students to the TU Delft and similar universities in energy programs to help us change society.
It can be a unique selling point, so to say.
Yeah, not necessarily unique, but important selling point for programs in, any program really in Delft with an energy aspect to it. And we have fortunately seen a lot of a large increase in student intake. And I would love to see that the, let's say, action in the outside world on climate and climate change and the feeling that young people have, that it incentivizes them to start programs on changing the world themselves.
Yeah, because, Ozak, I think you may be the youngest. I'm sort of the same age, I think. But is it a young man's game or young woman's game? Is it something that young people respond to more than?
I think a lot more young people are, I'll speak about myself, for example, are more aware of the impact that fossil fuels is having on our environment. We appreciate it's brought us this far, like Marcus said, it's 80% of our energy production is from fossil, but I think most young people will agree that it's time to move on. I think the frustration comes from the pace at which the transition is currently happening, and I think that's why a lot of people tend to take on activism as part of climate change, because the rate at which climate change is happening is not as quick as the transition is happening. A lot more people would like to see more funding for research ideas and innovation, and there's so much that could be done using technology and harnessing engineering as well within that space, but it's not currently done at the pace at which the negative impact is having on the environment. So I think that's the space where many young people are. They want to do something about it. They want to, whether it's innovating ideas or just in their own capacity, have a voice to voice that opinion. It's what I'd say about that.
Are we listening enough to young people in this matter? I mean, if it's a young people's game.
It's not just young people as well. So I think young people are more passionate because they feel they're going to live longer and experience more of the impact of it. No offense to any old people in the room. You're going to leave too. You're going to leave too.
And it'll be a wonderful few years, but it will end. Yeah.
It's the future.
Yes.
They feel more responsible to be able to push people in leadership opportunities. Young people are not the people in leadership positions at the moment.
Yes.
Basically.
I'm very short because I want to go to the next.
Well, just briefly maybe. We had Greta Thunberg from Sweden speak at the climate summit in New York. So that's probably a sign that, yes, we are listening to young people. Then again, I sometimes wonder what the response would be if there was not a teenage girl from Sweden, one of the richest countries in the world, saying, "You stole my future." But if we had a teenage girl from a slum somewhere in Africa talking about her need for affordable and energy that is accessible all day. We
Electricity is life, basically.
Exactly, yeah. So it depends on who are the young people we're listening to. Is it the people from the richer countries that are now out on the street in London, where actually they have gained some public outrage there as well by attacking the tube, I believe, which is an electronic transit system.
Yes, that was. It depends on what suburb you choose for your protest. But it's a very nice bridge to London, so to say. Yes, London was calling. For our next question, we would love to go to Imperial College and to Georgie Barrat. Are you there, Georgie?
I certainly am. Thanks very much, Diederik. Yeah, I'm here at Imperial College London, another hub of energy expertise. And I'm actually joined by Nigel Brandon, who is Dean of Engineering here, and also Anna Kaur, who also works in the faculty. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being part of the debate tonight. I'd love to find out, what's the most exciting thing that you guys are currently working on in energy right now?
I first go. Well, that's an extremely difficult question to answer very briefly. So, like TUDelft, Imperial College is a technical university. We have a rich portfolio of work going on renewable technologies, on carbon capture technologies. And I think, importantly, one of the things that's not come up yet is how you integrate these different technologies together into the energy system, how you move that electricity around, how you store that electricity, how you might think about the movement of electricity as energy as gas, as well as electricity down wires, and so on. So how we intersect these things together and how we bring technologies like batteries and other technologies together, smart grids, to do that. So it's a portfolio, as has already been stressed. It's not just one thing, it's many things, and how we make those work together, I think, is some of the most exciting things we're doing.
And is there anything you're particularly working on at the moment?
Yes, I do work on the environmental footprint of products, and I like to follow them along the value chains where they work. And I very strongly advocate that the most important thing that will make a change is if the price of the products at the place where they are consumed actually reflects their environmental footprint. And I try to produce the evidence that actually provide the information that is necessary to make those decisions at the place where the products are consumed.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being part of the debate tonight. We're actually going to go to a UK-focused question here, and I'm going to come to Ali up here. Ali, what would you like to ask our panel over in the Netherlands?
Yeah, so my question is, should the UK's 2050 net zero emission targets be brought forward?
OK, brilliant. Maarten, I know you were speaking about that a little bit earlier. I would love to get your thoughts from the panel over there.
Yes, so should we move the 2050 net zero emission forward? That's quite an ordeal. Should we? Let's start with that.
Obviously, I don't work for the government, so I'm not in a position to say yes or no to that question. But what I could say is that for changes to be made, you have to look at the three triangles, basically, that dominate in this. You have technology on one end, you have markets on the other end, and you have the policy. So basically, by markets, I mean the financial side of things. If the technology is not at the pace at the current moment to be able to offer net zero emissions, I think it would be extremely ambitious to then propose a closer time range. That said, by increasing or decreasing the number of years, could there be an urgency in government to actually want to finance those research in those areas that would ensure us meeting like the net zero emissions, which they talked about in the video. So I'm basically asking the question because there are several things at play. It's not just a one straightforward answer, but I would like to see if the government could try and move it a bit forward. But again, you have to look at where we are realistically with the research into how we could achieve that.
I can imagine that some people say that this is always sort of being used as a way to push it forward, because the first time somebody said CO2 might have influences is, what is it, Eunice Foote in 1856 or something? I mean, it's been known for quite a long time.
Yeah. It has been known, but like the professor said in the video, for example, there are still a lot of works around how we actually get all the different types of systems to work integrated together. So perhaps pushing the deadline a bit forward could help towards that. I think I'm for them not moving it any further than 2015, because we are running out of time as to what we can do to contain the situation we currently have. But I don't know if anybody else on the panel has any different views on that.
Paulien, I'm really talking about this topic on Twitter, and I sometimes get the response from people who say we should just stop and it's easy and just do this. And but if I hear things about integration of energy sources, I mean, you have quite a thing ahead of you as a scientist. How difficult is it?
Extremely difficult. It is almost too obvious to say it's too complicated, and it's very hard to speed it up, because there is also some inherent, let's say, slowness to innovations. If you need to change the entire energy industry and the entire chemical industry, so we're also talking about chemical building blocks for all of our plastics, everything we have here. If you want to overhaul that entire business, that entire industry, it just takes time. You can't do that tomorrow. Inherently, you need to build up an entire new industry, to build your electrolyzers, first to test them, to upscale. That takes time, and it doesn't help to throw more money at it or more people at it at some point. There's just an inherent time constant to those processes. So moving the 2050 deadline a bit forward or backward, whatever you want to call that, so let's say to 2040 or something, might also be sort of, a political statement and not that realistic. I can't really say it needs to be 2050 or 2048. I think nobody can say that. And what I also dislike about setting this strong boundary at 2050, it suggests that once it's 2050, we're either dead or we have solved the issue. And I think it will never be over. The entire transition will always be going on.
After 2050, there's 2051.
Sure.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
Like she mentioned,
so that's something you learned today.
The take-home message is absolutely.
Something she briefly touched on was that it takes time with research. I think the best solutions would be the ones that have been tested for the positive side of it and negative. I bet when first stumbled on fossil fuel and the benefits it had, nobody was focusing on the other side of things. And now we are here. So I think it's very important that research is given that time to mature and actually delve right into the detail of things. What are the positive impacts, and also what are the risks of us adopting this particular technology and this particular method? And is it bigger than not creating new problems down the line in the future? I think it's quite crucial.
We have some experience in creating new and new problems as a species. Do you feel anything about the deadline looming?
Well, if we get to net zero emissions by 2050, that would be an amazing accomplishment. We probably won't get there by 2050. So setting the target earlier, I don't think that's very realistic. We need to, get going, be open for all options to reduce CO2 emissions.
It should be more about the end goal instead of where exactly at what moment it is.
Yeah, and if you set high ambitions, the problem you may face is that if you don't reach these high ambitions, people will lose their motivation or so.
Because it's unattainable, it will never happen. So, all right.
Energy transitions take a very long time. That's what we know from the past, and it's probably gonna take a while
So
before we finish this.
I'm very curious because this is a very easy agree-disagree kind of questions. I'm wondering what the people here in the audience at Delft and of course in London think about this with the panel thingy. Do you agree then, green, red, or disagree? Should the UK 2050 net zero emission target be brought forward? And you can put in there the Netherlands as well if you prefer. We're pretty much the same. That is quite 50-50 here in Delft.
Same in England. Yeah.
And the same in London.
Yeah.
So, yes, we are pretty much undecided. Well, wonderful. So that's a take-home message number 2. It's complicated. Yeah. So I was wondering, Remel, is the poll changing, maybe?
There's a lot of mixed reactions tonight. The question was, which of these can best tackle climate change? So capturing CO2 is now at 30%, switching coal to gas is at 14%, more renewables is at 40%, and greater efficiency is at 16%. So as you can see, there's a lot of debate going on the Twitter as well. But we've also got questions and comments. So starting with the comments, Akshay Vasan said, coal and gas have no place in this 21st century as energy sources. Very strong opinion there. And then Axel Lareer said, overpopulation needs addressing if we want to solve the climate issue. What do you think? So I've got a question for the panel once again. Let's get talking, guys. This is from Vicky van der Togt, and they are saying, shall we not ban fossil fuels altogether?
Should we not ban all fossil fuels together? It's a bit difficult because I don't know what the time frame of this question is, but I can imagine that it has something to do with the fundamental idea that coal and gas and oil do not have a place in the transition in the long run. Does anybody want to comment on this?
Well, it seems like currently that it would be an immoral position to take, just because 80% of the world energy comes from fossil fuels, and there's no energy source readily available to scale up to take over that role now. Nuclear power, maybe. I'm very much in favor of nuclear. I have the idea that may come in this debate later this evening.
Well, it's inevitable almost, but it's sort of changing.
But with energy transitions, we always have to question, what are we transitioning from and where are we transitioning to? So if we close coal-fired power plants and replace them with gas-fired power plants, that is okay, because gas takes up like half the CO2 emissions. If we go from gas to nuclear power plants, that is even better, because you have no CO2 emissions. If you replace them with lots and lots of wind turbines, that's also good. We have CO2 emission-free electricity there, but we still need backup energy, which usually comes from fossil fuel-powered plants. So you always have to wonder, what is the transition we are talking about? And currently, we will need fossil fuel plants.
And in the end, if it were to be scaled up enough, will there be a point where it can be scalable enough? Like, for instance, the amount of energy that comes from the sun and hits the earth is ample amount of energy. We just need to harvest it.
Yeah.
Will there be a point where that will be possible?
Well, it depends. For a country like Australia, for instance, transitioning to solar would be a fantastic thing to do. Australia uses a lot of coal power because there is so much in the ground there. But there's vast amounts of deserts where sun is pretty reliable over there. So I would love to see Australians make that transition to solar farms.
But we have a different climate, sun-wise.
Yes. And we cannot tell the Australians what to do. They will make their own decisions in the end, just like any other country.
What do you think, Maarten? What is the long-term goal of a company like Shell? Do you think it will be at some point be a completely renewable company?
Yeah, well, the long-term goal is to be the best energy company in the world, and that. Being the best energy company in the world has for a long time meant being really, really good at oil and gas, because that was the business. By 2050, That will mean being very, very good at very low carbon energy, low carbon electricity, biofuels, hydrogen, and so we clearly need to move from A to B in order to remain relevant. But I think when it comes to the question, I believe we have to quickly focus the usage of fossil fuels to those sectors that find it very difficult to find alternatives. So,
such as?
Petrochemicals, for example, need a molecule. It's very difficult to electrify petrochemicals in the next 50 years. And they produce our medicines, our mattresses, the material we use to...
It's just basically the atomic ingredient of stuff is often from carbon.
Starts with oil and gas.
From oil and gas, yes.
The production of steel, cement, fertilizer, all at the moment and in the foreseeable future critically needs oil and gas as a result. Aviation fuels. So there's a number of sectors that will probably still be using oil and gas by 2050. So we'll need to develop negative emissions to offset those, but particularly we will need to bring all the other sectors to use renewable electricity only.
So start with the low-hanging fruit.
Transport, that is heating. Yeah. There's a lot to be electrified and for electricity to be made clean. And I think that's where also the point on should we bring 2050 forward or not is a slightly, to me, secondary debate. The primary debate is how do we move now quickly on what we know that works, which is electrification of transport, of heat, and all these things that we can do today with today's technology.
Shell does say we agree with the Paris Climate Accord, right?
Yep, absolutely.
But Paris says in 2050 we need to bring it a lot more down than Shell says in her climate mission. Right, for the year. I mean, like in 2030, there are different marks to be made.
Yeah, I think you refer particularly to the IPCC report that is more recent than Paris, that said we need to indeed get to net zero by 2050. Yes. And I think that will be a great achievement. And if the world is on that path, then Shell can only be successful by also being on that path. The way we see the scenarios is that the rich world, the Netherlands, UK, US, should definitely aim for net zero by 2050. But to ask the same for the developing world, when there's still 2 billion people who don't have even access to reliable energy, will be a bit harder. So whether for the world that 2050 year will actually be a valid assumption, I'm not sure. And it doesn't actually need to be.
Are you sometimes annoyed that Shell is being blamed for stuff?
Every day.
I can imagine. I mean, on the one hand, people use it. On the other hand, Shell. Yeah.
Let me say,
or not. Or
I also understand it because people are worried about the energy transition and want somebody to do something about it. And then there's this big, powerful company. Why don't you do more about it?
Yes.
So I understand the emotion, but does it annoy me? Yeah, as well.
But you have like a big backup bank account. That's sometimes what we think. Wow, the billions you have in your emergency bank account are amazing.
Well, our treasurer worries every day about the billions we don't have.
Okay.
No, of course we have the skill and scale to make a difference, and we want to do that. But we can't do it by ourselves. I'll give you a very small example. In 1992, we started Shell Hydrogen, because we thought that hydrogen would be an important solution to the future of energy. Shell Hydrogen has for the last 28 years reliably lost money because we couldn't find customers to buy it from us. It is now kind of becoming interesting, but we are far too early there. And that's
how
fine.
Much billions have you lost?
We could carry that. We could carry that, but we can't do that 100 times over without the market and the governments going with us.
Do you know what the figure is, what you've lost? I mean, that might be interesting for people to...
No, I don't have that number for you, but I'll go and look it up, and next
the treasurer is already on the line, probably. Yes, I can imagine. Remel, do you have some things from the Twitterverse for us?
Of course. So the question that is being used for the poll is which of these can best tackle climate change? So still up and down, capturing CO2 is at 30%, switching coal to gas is at 14%, more renewables is at 40%, and greater efficiency is at 16%. So again, very up and down. If you want to get involved, join the conversation. If you want to change that answer as well, All you have to do is use hashtag energy debate. And also, I have got some lovely friends here of the Delft University Energy Club. Energy Club, what's going on? So tell me first, what do you guys do?
Well, we're a student organization under Delft Energy Initiative, and we try and facilitate students to know more about the energy transition and are enthusiastic about it, create awareness, actually create a sense of urgency, and help them understand that it's a threat and we need to react to it and understand more about it.
Awesome. And you have a question.
I do. So thank you to the panelists and to everyone for being here. The question we have is that companies like Shell and BP are trying to show that they're taking lead in the energy transition. And should we let oil and gas companies take the lead in the energy transition, knowing that they have shareholders' profit maximization on the top of their agenda?
Makes sense. So, there is basically what we sort of hinted at already. What a company does is primarily meant for shareholders. And I can imagine that a company like Shell has all kinds of shareholders from across the globe, which might be difficult to sort of agree on stuff. How can you do and create this new energy transition?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's important. People sometimes think of our shareholders as rich billionaires who sit on their yacht in the Mediterranean, stroking their tiger.
Yes. Well, to be honest, there aren't welfare mothers who are big shareholders at Shell.
We have two of those, but mostly our shareholders are pension funds, are mutual funds that invest people's savings and that take care of people's pensions going forward. If you look at the pension debate in Europe, of course, lowering pensions is a tough one. And so our dividend is actually funding very, very important cash flows elsewhere in the economy. And so our challenge really is to scale up the response to the energy transition in an economically responsible way. And that's not just our challenge, that's everybody's challenge. Because as I said before, we need actually trillions to go into the energy transition, and that will only be unlocked if there is a reasonable profit margin to be made. The second point you'd say profit maximization is at the top of our agenda. That doesn't get you very far if that's your only agenda. We've been around for 125 years by actually serving all our stakeholders, which is our neighbors, where we have our facilities, which is the populations of the countries we live in, the people that work for us, and also our shareholders. But it's a balancing act rather than just serving one.
It is always difficult, you know. I mean, to have your priorities always.
Well, that's the job of the manager, isn't it? It's constant trade-offs. But can you leave the transition to big companies? Of course not. Everybody needs to be involved.
Well, it's
we need the governments, the regulators.
You say it pretty much like it's an interesting yes or no question. So I'm going to ask the people here and in London with the pedals. Let's make up a question. Something about your pension. So if is it worth to have a significant decrease in your pension to pay for the transition or not? So yes, if you agree it's worth a significant portion, and yes, I know that's a bit vague, but it's interesting. Okay, and London? How are you in your pensions? So if I see at least these people, and I don't know how it can be generalized to everybody in the Netherlands and the UK, but they basically say it's okay.
That's great.
Do stuff. Tell the pension fund.
No, I say it's great because it is what it shows, the willingness to sacrifice something for the energy transition. That's not been around for a long time. People want to like to continue to live their lives and have the problem solved by someone else. What you see now in society is people are willing to either pay a bit more for carbon offset fuel, as 1 out of our 5 customers in the Netherlands now does, or take less flights, or really change behavior, and that's recent. That's good.
I think that in London, did I hear that correctly? All right. I would love to hand it over to London at the moment. Hello, London.
Hello, it's lovely to be handed over to, Diederik. We thought we'd love to get Jo Coleman in on the discussion because she's Shell's UK Energy Transition Manager. Jo, what would you like to add into the discussion?
So I think what we're saying, we're talking about the shareholders and pensions, and I think it's great that people want to give something up. But on the other hand, you know, we look at, say, France, where we're seeing the Yellow Vest Brigade, and I know in the Netherlands there's been quite a lot of problem with tractor drivers protesting. So I think it's really important that we, if we're giving something up, we're giving it up equitably, that it's a just transition, and we aren't expecting, you know, for example, we talk about aviation, and you know, there's a lot of talk in the UK about we need to stop flying or fly less. Now, is that everybody needs to fly less, and that includes all the people who only take one flight a year, or do we need to kind of ration flying so that we can still take a flight a year, for example? Because if we are focused on, you know, we have to be fair to everybody.
Yes.
In this.
So looking at a more sort of holistic picture of how everybody's impacted by any sort of...
So we can give things up, but you know, some people are perhaps more capable of giving something up than others. And we talked a bit about energy use in places like Nigeria. If you have no energy, you've got nothing to give up.
Yes.
So we need to equip people with energy, and we need to also, as the journalist there was saying, we need to have quality of life, because if we feel that we're pulling away from our quality of life, people will reject the energy transition. I don't think that's where we want to be.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jo. Back to you, Diederik.
Thank you so much. I am wondering here, maybe just a one green or red thing, and I know this is not scripted, but again, the flying is very interesting here in London. Who of you, green if you have not traveled by plane because you thought it's bad for the environment? So there was one trip.
Since when?
Last year.
Okay, I've got one.
Last year where you thought, I want to go, but no, I'm not going. And if you cancel the trip last year because of flight shaming, you stick up green because you're a green person. Okay, sorry, it was quite complicated. I think people are getting it. And in London, how are you? So this is interesting. I mean, people are starting to become more aware of this, but this is also in us, of course. We may need to stop sometimes flying, I guess. Right, Ozak? You agree?
I quite enjoy flying. I grew up not being able to travel. My parents were saving towards my education, so now I'm able to travel. I like to explore the world and see new places. I fly commercial, don't have a private jet, so I just have to be honest, to be honest. I do appreciate that people are more considerate and thinking about the impact they're having. But I also think about that, and I also make savings where I can. But going on holiday, everyone who knows me, I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy flying planes. So yeah, I do fly, unfortunately. Sorry.
Your honesty should be applauded. Absolutely. Yes. Because this is the thing, you know, with the transition. We all have to participate, and we all have to make sacrifices and choices, companies, governments, and us as well. And it's not fun. People who say to you, traveling by train is amazing. Well, not always. Anyway, are we going to Remel?
We can do.
We can do, Remel.
Well, of course, everyone's been getting involved on the Twitter as well, using #EnergyDebate. And the poll has changed again. So the question was, which of these can best tackle climate change? So capturing CO2 is now at 29%. Switching coal to gas is 14%. You guys are reacting to. More renewables at 41% and greater efficiency at 16%. So again, it's changing. Everyone's talking about it. And also, there's comments coming in as well. Shreya Tanisha said, the oil and gas industry will continue to embrace the energy transition. This is evident in the efforts of major and minor companies. And also, Sharif Ahmad said, solar energy is backbone world development. Lots of opinions.
Yes.
Lots of theories.
And I think that the responses here in the audience were that for some reason it's quite steady, I think. There's not a dramatic shift going on.
But it's changing.
It's changing slightly.
That's why everyone needs to get involved.
Ever so
Hashtag energy debate as well.
Okay, thank you so much, Remel. Yes, I think that the next question comes from our friends in London. So, Georgie, are you there? I hope so.
I am here. I'm here. I just so happen to be sitting on the other side of the debate, which isn't so helpful. Yes, so Remel, you were speaking to your energy club earlier. I have the ICL Energy Society here. And Chris, you are part of it. Can you tell us a little bit about what you get up to there?
Yes, I am. So my name is Chris and this is Emily. We're from the Imperial College Energy Society and Energy Club, respectively. We're student-run energy societies at Imperial, and we're interested in all aspects of the energy industry, such as the energy transition, energy systems, energy modeling, and microgrids. And we're so glad to be given a chance to have our student voices heard and ask questions on behalf of the society in this energy debate.
Brilliant. Well, Emily, you're going to have your voice heard. What question would you like to pose to our panel?
So typically investments in oil and gas have much higher returns than renewables. How would oil and gas companies be able to leverage their expertise to drive similar returns on renewables?
Brilliant. Diederik, over to you.
Thank you so much, Georgie. So it sort of comes back to companies and finance. So Shell has said, for instance, that there needs to be a market, and other companies say that as well. Otherwise, you cannot function as a company. You have said this as well. And that makes sense. What do we need to do in our economy to make it more interesting for companies? Do you, Paulien, you have something?
Yeah, maybe I sort of understand this. There needs to be a market mantra, and I agree with that. A commercial company needs to make a profit, although you can lower it a bit. I just heard they don't need any pension. But I also think sometimes companies also can lead a change or can create markets where consumers have no idea that they would ever have liked, you know, the smartphone, the ever used example of
Steve Jobs has pushed us.
Creating a new product, creating a new market that we didn't think we needed, but still, hey, we're all using this silly smartphone now. So I think in terms of creating a market, maybe we could ask a little bit more from the big oils and the big companies to help us create that new future and lead the way. You already talked about leading. And I think leading the change in Western Europe towards renewables, maybe, let's say, the best way forward here, and maybe leading to create energy and access to energy in developing countries, maybe the way to lead there. So I'm a bit on, you know, on the fence. There needs to be a market, but maybe there needs to be a little bit more of creating the market in a responsible way.
And is there maybe a way where we can push company? Because I tend to agree. There can be done a bit more from time to time from some companies. Not naming names, but sometimes. What can we do? Because I mean, I'm sort of joking, but there is some seriousness to it. We need to have like structures in place where we can push companies in all kinds of fields to do more. How can we do this?
Yeah, and there I also agree with what a few weeks ago Marjan van Loon was saying here, and what you are also saying is that even the big companies can't do it alone. They need to work in institutions and markets and regulations that also work in favor of changing the society. So, for example, if you want to move more quickly, because that was the question in London, if you want to leverage your knowledge and move toward renewables faster, maybe we need to think about setting a higher CO2 price in place. That may incentivize companies fitting in their business model to move to renewables faster. It's just an example how we can collaborate with these things. Another example would be to support, help also from universities like us, to start piloting, to start field labs, to just get going on things and allow failure in these field labs or these pilot plants, because we need a lot of failures in order to find the best solution.
So you mean, like, for instance, electric cars, sometimes people scientists are annoyed that they're not able to just test them in the real world, and we may need to accept that maybe somebody gets hit by a self-driving car, but you need sort of failure to discover the best way forward.
That's a bad example, Diederik.
very bad.
Well, is it really a bad example in a sense that you said failure is a necessary part, and you need to accept that things might not go without failure.
But there's acceptance to failure where people are involved and people may die.
I'm not saying drive it around in a kindergarten.
No.
I'm just saying, come on. There's sort of a gray area here.
I thought
I'm saying just testing, like a park environment. I don't know. No, but the idea is still there. That,
just the other day at Rotterdam Airport, they opened. They're going to start to build a field lab or a pilot plant, small-scale plant to create green kerosene from CO2, water, make 1,000 liters per day. And you can respond to that like, oh, sure, whatever. We need 1 billion liters per day on the world, so whatever are you doing? This will completely fail because the technology will not be stable for 5 years. And still, I think these are crucial steps to be taken. And I'm also happy to see that companies like Shell, but also others, engage in those kinds of pilot plants that may fail, and that will for sure fail. And I even hope that they will fail, because it helps our research further.
Sure.
I think
I did maybe... Oh, sorry.
Just a quick one to say to perhaps consider moving away from always focusing on just the financials. So having like a total impact value for companies that looks at the impact on their products are having on people, on the environment, on society, on ecology, as well as finances as well. But having some form of rating system would perhaps be an option or alternative to probably drive people more to try, or drive corporations more to try.
So the problem is our global economics don't have a production value or an economic value for human...
It's always in monetary value, it's always in numbers and zeros, it's always in profits. Perhaps now looking at a bigger picture as what is the impact of this product, what is the impact of this company on people's lives, on environment, and having some form of total impact rating or something of that nature to evaluate companies on. It's a wild idea that just came to my head.
And maybe as a society value or give bonuses or something like that, or
perhaps, yeah.
Sounds interesting.
Well, maybe we should go back to your question about market, and I think there is we may be making a mistake if we look at this as in for a demand and supply kind of thing, and Shell may be deliberately kind of confusing these kind of things and say that there is a market for fossil fuels. I think there is a demand for energy, and it doesn't matter so much. Is there a demand for gasoline? No. We just want to go from A to B, and if there was something else other than gasoline, we would be happy to use that, right? So there is not so much. We want clean energy, right? We want energy not to warm the planet even more. We want energy without air pollution. We want it to be abundant and available 24/7. We want it to be affordable, cheap, if we can. If you're an environmentalist, you want energy to come from very few resources. You want there would be no waste, so nothing would leak, into the air, into the water, and well, there's the elephant in the room, I guess. This is what nuclear power can do. Nuclear power can do all these kind of things. I'm not saying there is a strong demand for nuclear power, certainly not in Western Europe, but there is a demand for energy, and we need to realize that there is not so much a demand for fossil fuels.
But should we maybe then sort of make energy into a currency, maybe, that you sort of combine the things, because that's the only thing that really drives everything, energy.
Energy is needed for everything, but energy is a service, and it doesn't, well, it matters, of course, how energy is produced, and we need to find the cleanest way possible to provide the energy that we all need, and not just us. I mean, we could fly less. Indeed, we can make some sacrifices because, hey, we are in the Netherlands, we are in the UK, we are in wealthy countries, but we're living in a world where there's growing world population and growing demand for energy, and that's something we should support.
To address the green glowing elephant in the room, because nuclear was asked on Twitter. You say nuclear. I'm sort of leaning in favor of nuclear as well, but I think you sort of flinched.
Yeah,
so
I'm not fully on board with nuclear personally, and again, it's perhaps my background. So looking at accessibility and affordability in places like Nigeria, personally, I don't think nuclear would be a direction for us because there would be issues around management of those technology and waste from from those systems.
Yes.
But then even in the developed world, you have questions about who wants a nuclear reactor on their own, next to their own homes or next to where their kids go to school. So there is a lot of debate. A lot of convincing needs to be done based on evidence-based research using technology and whatever research we're currently doing now to be able to convince more people as to the future of nuclear being like a, well, I'm personally not for nuclear, basically.
All right. Remel, where are you? Are you? So, there, awesome.
Having a little seat just for a minute.
Excellent. But there are questions in the audience.
Yes, I also have Twitter comments as well before we get to the audience questions.
Okay.
Because we have people watching from all over the world. So thank you everyone for tuning in and hashtag energy debate. We are loving it right now. We've got a comment that says coal versus oil versus nuclear. Do they all have a place in the future? And also another comment from Gabriel Adosh who says renewable energy sources we have are too expensive. Most people can't even afford an inverter and a solar panel.
All right.
So, I am happy to take some questions.
Audience questions. Is there somebody raising? There's somebody there. Just slightly.
Hello, I'll hand this over to you.
Hello, thank you for having the debate tonight. I think my question is, why are we having this debate in 2019 when we know about this issue since 1988? And yeah, basically, I think this has to do with Shell's lobbying that it did for the past 30 years to block climate action globally in governments. And yeah, basically, I'm a bit upset about this. And I think that's why most environmentalists also say why Shell is an evil company. It's because of the lobbying it did against climate.
It's okay. People tend to be sort of on the fence when it comes to Shell because there were, I mean, just a few years ago, Shell has said we stop with a sort of lobbying group, the American, I don't know what the Association for Production of Energy Manufacturers, I don't know the exact name, but because of lobbying against climate action. What is the role of Shell in the past when it comes to that?
Yeah, Shell, there's apparently confusion about this topic, but Shell has never lobbied against climate action, not 30 years ago, not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago. There is indeed an association of petrochemical manufacturers in the United States that we left a year and a half ago, not because they lobby against climate change, but because their position on climate change is ambivalent. And there's a big difference between lobbying and taking a position, of course. So we review all the mostly industry societies and clubs that we are member of. And if their position on climate change is too far removed from ours and we can't influence them, then we leave them. But you will be hard you'll be hard challenged to find Shell lobbying against climate legislation at any point in time in the last 30 years. We simply haven't done that.
Right. There's some disagreement here. But that's not something that we get fixed here at this point in time, I think. Remel, you were slightly before, the red sweater.
Okay. Do you mind stepping over a little bit? Meet
sorry.
me halfway, love.
Not mega accessible.
Thank you so much. This is very, very, thank you. Teamwork, I love it. Thank you. Right, your question, please.
Yeah, I was wondering, there's a lot of talk about switching to renewables and we should accelerate. But I feel like at some point we're going to run into a wall, which is material scarcity and a lot of critical materials that are necessary for PV panels and wind turbines are running out in 10, 20 years. What is your opinion on that?
So things like rare earth materials, like lithium and those kinds of materials, right?
And also in light
cobalt.
And also in light of limited recycling potential at this point, we can.
What do you do with the old batteries and stuff like that? You mean?
Sorry?
What do you do with the old batteries and stuff like that? You mean?
Recycling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who wants to? Do you have an overview or?
Yeah, sure.
I know. I thought you were getting ready to give an answer. No.
Oh
no, but Paulien, you are in with a lot of research.
I totally agree.
Well.
I think the material issue, scarcity, or impact on the environment, is a very, very difficult and important and critical thing to research and to solve. That's why. Part of our research in Delft is geared towards that, finding new catalysts, finding new membranes, finding circular ways of retrieving sources that we've already used. So we're trying and we're doing research in all of these issues. But I think one of the key things here also is to diversify, not to put only PEM electrolyzers out there in the world, because we just don't have enough of that, platina, for example. So we need to diversify and find new ways, and do research to reduce the materials that you need for each and every energy technology. And that again takes time.
And what is your main concern? What will be the first big bottleneck, you think? Or is that too difficult of a...
That is too difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I thought
I'll just be honest.
Yeah, I thought so when I asked.
Yeah.
So, you're in front.
I'm coming.
One moment for the microphone.
Hello.
Hello. I recently heard from a student I was teaching. We were talking about the energy transition, and then he mentioned that there is this issue that many people don't have energy access, some 2 billion, and I see that used a lot as an argument while oil and gas are important. But he mentioned that there's now a lot of activity from Russia selling nuclear power plants in Africa, solving the big crisis in electricity in the major cities in Africa. And this is really a question for Maarten. Did we miss the boat there?
Yeah, I think as let's say the rich world, we've missed the boat dramatically on energy access. Indeed, 800 million people have no access to energy at all, and then just over 1 billion have very irregular access to energy. And it is the primary source of progress for people, is to actually be able to burn a light in the evening, to refrigerate their food that they have left over to use the next day, or to have some basic mobility to find a job outside their village or to go to a better school. So access to energy is central to quality of life, and the fact that so many people don't have it is, I think, in terms of global governance, something for us all to think about. It is one of the development goals of the United Nations, of course. What we find, and we have made a commitment to provide energy access to 100 million people by 2030 who don't have it today. That started last year, that commitment. What we find is it doesn't really need oil and gas or nuclear. It really can be solved with modern energy technologies. So our affiliate in India at the moment is rolling out 1 mini-grid per week, so reaching 1 village a week with a mini-grid that essentially consists of solar, batteries and bio, and using the waste of rice production for the bio production, for the biofuel side to run at night. So there's no...
So the idea is that the village is then off the central grid, so to say, and they're self-relying.
They're not on any grid today. So when the grid arrives, they have never had access to energy.
Yes.
The mini grid arrives, and that gives them 24/7 electricity to at least use these basic functions. And then over time, as wealth is created, you can upgrade these mini grids. You don't need nuclear for it until productivity becomes almost kind of middle class type. So it can be done in a very modern and clean way, and that is being rolled out not only by us, but of course we're far too late. This should have been done decades ago.
I certainly agree with what Maarten said. I think you already know where I stand with nuclear, but I also think that Africa needs its own independence. They need their own self-reliance. So having Russia or another country coming in to do plants and stuff like that is not the best way forward. I think they need to what we need, or what I think Africa needs, from my opinion, is more about knowledge sharing. So innovations that have been made in solar energy, for example, in Nigeria, would be applicable to us rather than having companies or other countries coming to add in more. So for example, there was oil in the ground, we drilled, look at where we are today, Nigeria, with oil crisis. So I'm really not for other countries coming. I think what we will benefit a lot more from knowledge sharing and sharing of the innovation that's already happening in renewable and alternative energies, as opposed to, more, should I say, systems that people there themselves cannot manage long term. I think it's a crisis waiting to happen if that happens. But empowering people with knowledge and the innovation in those technologies is quite key, I think.
Thank you. We are going over to London. Georgie, are you there?
I certainly am. Thanks, Diederik. Yes, well, one of the big hot topics this year is all about sort of climate targets and are we doing enough? And we have a question here from Adriana, who's actually from Portugal. Adriana, what would you like to ask the panel?
Yeah, thank you. So some people argue it's going to be impossible to cut fossil fuels use straight away. So what's the panel's view concerning the use of natural gas as a transitional fuel due to the lower impact in green gas emissions compared to coal and other fossil fuels?
Brilliant, thank you very much. Diederik, back to you.
So, exchanging gas for oil, or the other way around, oil for gas.
Cool, I think was the question.
Coal, what's the question? Well,
Coal
okay.
for natural gas. I think, personally, natural gas has its own issues, which we know about already. It's just jumping the step a bit less, but it still has emissions. I personally believe we need to ramp up other alternatives as opposed to natural gas, but that's just my opinion on that. I personally would say we're better off exploring how we could increase the efficiency of existing systems like wind energy, solar power, and how we could improve battery storage as well. Ultimately, for renewables to work and alternative energy systems to work, we need a storage system for that. So I personally think we need to focus on that.
So gas might be a lesser evil, but it's still evil nonetheless.
Yeah, no,
all right, fair enough.
Well,
do you agree with that assessment?
Well, when I advocate the benefits of natural gas, I'm a bit like the milkman telling you that milk is good for you, because I sell a lot of natural gas. It's my business. So I have a conflict of interest declared. But then I will say that in the global energy mix today, the biggest source of energy is oil, but the second biggest is coal. And it's 30% of all energy used in the world is produced by coal. Now, the best thing would be to displace that coal by renewables. But it's going to take the rest of the century to do that at the current pace. So an even better solution, and that can make a huge impact, is to not only displace coal by renewables, but at the same time displace it by natural gas and get it out of the energy system very, very quickly. Then that is the largest CO2 urgent and technically feasible CO2 saving that we can make today. And then once we've done taking that 30% of coal out, then clearly natural gas needs to be taken out by more renewables. But if we wait if we try to do it only with renewables, it's going to take too long.
It might be too late. Paulien, do you?
Well, this is exactly why oil companies, I believe, they love renewables. Renewables aren't sufficient yet to power 24/7. They rely on fossil fuel plants to, provide the energy when the wind is not blowing, when the sun is not shining. So Shell is perfectly happy installing wind turbines offshore and everything, because they know that wind turbines will never be able to compete with fossil fuels. You cannot close fossil fuels plant. Even if you build 1,000, 10,000 of wind turbines, you can only close coal or gas plant.
What would be the solution then?
Nuclear, yeah.
It has been shown as the fastest way to decarbonize the economy.
A sort of quick response. Do you agree with the assessment of gas as a sort of intermediate?
I think given the urgency of climate change and getting CO2 out of the air, we need to do everything we can. So replacing coal is always good. Don't forget CC, carbon capture and storage. There is just this little that we're not tying ourselves up into a path that we cannot get out of quick enough to move to renewables.
The lesser evil is
yes.
still...
Yeah. So we need to keep an eye on that. That's a very, stupid statement, but it's a concern of mine.
London, there's a follow-up question, right, Georgie?
There certainly is. Yeah, we've got Ada here who'd like to pose a question to the panel. Ada, what would you like to say?
Firstly, I'd like to say thank you to the panel. And I would also like to ask, how can we transition in countries that are still not in the grid without going through the fossil fuel path and just going straight to the renewables so that they don't have to have this debate in 20 years' time?
Brilliant. Over to you, Diederik.
Thank you, Georgie. So we've sort of discussed the nuclear not being an option for Africa because of the dependence, the societal dependence on foreign technology. So is there also a problem with the grid itself? I mean, I can imagine that sort of decentralization, microgrids has its advantages.
I could speak for Nigeria because that's where I grew up. And yes, there is our current system wouldn't work. I think places like Nigeria would benefit from a combination. In cities, we do have a grid system, but in rural areas, we don't. It would benefit from a combination of microgrid and the existing grid that we currently have, so focusing on infrastructure. There are other underlying issues which I won't get into in this debate as to why we have energy crisis in this part of the world, but I certainly agree that renewable energy, such as solar energy, for example, we're based on the equator. There is a lot in there for us. But then you have the issues around energy storage, which I keep coming back to because it is fundamental for these systems to work, to be able to forecast where people need demand and the peak periods when those demands happen, and to be able to have somewhere to pull that energy from. The sun doesn't stay up all day, as we know. So yeah, I definitely think that, microgrids is a definite way for places like Nigeria to move forward with the energy, solving the energy problem about accessibility. It's still not very cheap. The panels itself, like somebody mentioned in the audience today, they're still quite expensive technology. And so there's still that question of affordability. And then there's also natural resources that we currently have. We have oil in the ground. So moving people's views away from fossil that is right beneath their soil to looking more to the sky at solar energy is still like almost like an awareness thing that still needs to happen.
An education
part of it, yes.
Okay, so education and the storage of energy is the most important.
And access, yeah. I think as the technology improves here, it becomes cheaper, is my view. So accessibility is still a problem because it's still not affordable at the moment, but microgrids and storage are key ways forward.
All right. I'm sorry, Remel, where are you?
I'm sitting again. Yes, I'm back.
Yes, excellent.
Right, so of course we've got some more comments coming in from the Twitter, #EnergyDebate. And this one's directed at you, Marco. It says, I think Marco is confusing the need for fossil fuels as energy and the need for fossil fuels as feedstock for industry. Also, we've got another comment. This is from Promise. Fossil fuels are not a necessary evil. We may continue to benefit from oil and gas with minimal negative impacts on the environment. So, lots of feedback.
And we've discussed the poll. Are we getting to Marco? What? I'm sorry. I'm getting it. What do you think of Remel's question? Sorry, I was...
All right. So, do I understand this question correctly that... So, industry is using... energy is using fossil fuels and that's a bad thing?
Yeah, they say that fossil fuels are being used as feedstock for industry.
What is feedstock? Sorry.
Yeah, I think I may want to comment on that. If you look at oil or gas or coal, we use it as energy source, create electricity or heat up our furnaces, whatever. And we use oil, as you also mentioned in the beginning, and gas and coal for their molecules. So everything we have in terms of plastics and you name it, has a core of molecules that are probably 99.99% from oil, gas or coal. So replacing all of our fossil fuel uses or feedstock with nuclear energy or whatever renewable source is impossible. We need to find other ways to also replace the fact that we have used in the past oil, gas and coal to provide our molecules. And I think in Delft, what we research, but many other universities worldwide, we look at recycling CO2.
So
getting
having
CO2 from the air,
the building block.
Yeah, because that is our key molecule. We need the C atom as a key building block for our, everything you wear, use, carry, have.
All right. Is there an audience question for the panel? Somebody is raising.
Come down to the front. I will come and join you, sir.
Quickly raising.
Hello. Hi. Your question.
My name is Menno Blauw. I have a question about Aramco going public this week. I thought that was very fascinating news. Because I've heard that the fossil fuel companies have something on their balance sheet that they call unburnable reserves, meaning it's oil that they know could never be burned without destroying the earth. And I suspect that Aramco is feeling that they are at that point and they need to cash in on their unburnable reserves, and that anybody who buys stock in a company like that now is basically sending his money down the drain. And I was wondering if the panel would agree with me on that apparently now there's something is starting where the world is beginning to feel that investing in fossil fuel companies is sending money down the drain. And nobody should do that, not even a pension plan.
So what's your question?
Does the going public of the Aramco oil company mean, is it a signal that the system is really beginning to collapse and that nobody in their right mind should invest in oil companies anymore?
Maarten, I would assume that you might have a different opinion on this. I don't know. Is it sensible to invest in fossil fuel companies? Because will they survive the transition, basically?
Yeah, I guess there's a legal risk in me giving investment advice to the room here. I think the Aramco process has had many angles. People have been worried about the governance of it, of whether 1.5% of the shares is really something that will be protected by the legal system that the company operates under. So I wouldn't take it straight as a rejection of the investment case in oil. If you look at the share price of other companies that have significant oil reserves, they're still very healthy and very valuable companies. I think, though, I would like to think that the most valuable companies will be the ones that continue to be very good at producing oil and gas as long as it is necessary, but also are good at making the switch to the new energy side. That's slightly more experimental, but once investors start to reward that behavior, I think the investments will follow.
Is there something changing with your investors? Do you?
Yeah, no, it is very interesting. So we have been holding actually for the last 25 years something that's called the Socially Responsible Investor Day, because we publish a Shell sustainability report, and then we have a day where socially responsible investors can come and challenge us and hear from us about what we do in this space. I would say up to 5 years ago, all the investment banks sent their interns to these meetings. So you would have the Shell management and 25-year-old, just out of college students asking questions from the report. The last two meetings, we have all the heads of these investment banks show up to ask questions and to hear about our sustainability story. So sustainable investing has gone totally mainstream, and all the main funds are being questioned by their investors about how are they investing responsibly.
So you do feel sort of a push from society to change?
It is changing very fast every year.
All right.
Absolutely.
Remel, back to you.
So I feel like we've got some heat going on. People want to ask questions. Who has a burning question? Oh, okay, I see that hand went up fast. Hello, sir. Okay. Feel free to stand.
Hello, good evening.
Stand.
Well, yes, better like this. Well, good evening. My question is related to how the energy transition intends to also embrace the social aspect. So we see that during the oil era, we have oil-rich companies, and yet inequality, and yet poverty. So how does the energy transition intend to, to give an alternative to this as well?
So have it be more fair and democratized, maybe. All right.
Well, a system. No, it was a bit too loud.
Create a system.
Well, to enable a system where people can be empowered in their own communities and that can have access to affordable and available electricity, and that can allow them to carry on their activities. Yes.
How can we change the system? Anybody?
Well, yeah, I'll say one thing about. I think the future, particularly of our energy consumption, so as citizens, not so much perhaps of big industrial complexes, but as citizens, is a distributed future. You will no longer take electricity from a grid that has very large power plants and sends the electricity one way, and you as a consumer just pay the bill at the end. These will be either your own, off-the-grid home system, or with your neighborhood or with your street. These will be small communities of that have their own solar, perhaps wind, perhaps their heat pumps, and that balance their energy consumption together as a community, and that only take let's say the balance from a grid that covers a different neighborhood, and that is a much more distributed, under your own control system than the one that we have been a part of in the past. And I think it's part of a trend where people want to have control over what they consume and how they lead their lives. And I think that is the way the electricity system is going to end up, decentralized.
So it is changing already from just one production, a big company and many consumers to more prosumers, is the term, like a combination of things.
Yeah, so yes, so we run, in brief, we have a company called Sonnen who sell home-based batteries, and we have a community of 40,000 Sonnen users in Germany, because that's it, and they essentially share all their electricity together. They have solar panels on their roofs and they have a Sonnen battery, and if they have electricity left, they give it to that community and they take it from it if they need extra. And only if those 40,000 people together don't produce enough, do they take from the grid. It's a very different system.
I think
Remel, I think I'm very anxious to see whether our poll is shifting.
Well, just before we get to the poll, we actually have a very, very tough question for Maarten, if I'm honest.
All right.
So this is, many people think this isn't a debate and believe the only solution to the climate emergency is ban Shell from existence. What is your response, Maarten?
Why should ban Shell?
Yeah, well, we've been around for 125 years and we plan to be around for another 125 years. I think the key trick is to leverage the skill and scale of that company to speed up the energy transition rather than to ban the company.
Okay, so you think Shell needs to be part of the solution?
Well, if the company wants to survive, it better be part of the solution, right? So absolutely.
So it's in its self-interest to be more green?
That's obvious.
All right, well, okay, all right.
There's a bit of a play here, right? I mean, come on. Shell wants to make money, right? And it's totally fine. It's a business. It has shareholders. That's what it does. And by working on, offshore wind parks and everything, solar farms, it can, get subsidies from government. It can still operate their gas-fired plants. That's all fine, but that's your business. But want to be part of the solution. I don't know.
So we need to have a government is more than the solution.
Well, yeah, I think there is a great role to play for a government in cleaner energy innovation. That's probably the best thing you can do to combat climate change.
I mean, you cannot leave it up to companies.
Yeah, well, install CO2 tax and not, internationally, so, you don't get these leakages everywhere. Yeah. That would be something. You could get a fantastic R&D budget that way to provide cleaner energy. I mean, CCS, capture carbon and storage, that's all fine. There are lots of fossil fuel powered plants in the world that will operate for decades because, they haven't been written off. So we need to develop that technology too, not to keep Shell alive, but, because we all want energy, right? And we don't want even more climate change. So that's what we need to do. But more energy innovation, more energy in general.
All right. Thank you so much. Remel, finally, the poll. Is it doing anything? Is it moving? Is it...
Of course, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. The Twitter poll is officially closed, which means I now have the final results. So the question was... Bear with me. Which of these can best tackle climate change? Capturing CO2 is now 29%, switching coal to gas is 14%, more renewables 41%, and greater efficiency is 16%.
Clear. Thank you, Remel. There's a semi-stuck poll, but at least the more renewables tends to be the thing. Brief from the panel. What do you think?
Well, of course, that is the narrative we see mostly in politics, at least here in the Netherlands, probably also in the UK. It's a narrative we get in the media. And, you know, that's good. I mean, the IPCC, all energy experts say that we need more renewables. And yes, we do. We need more gas. We need more nuclear. That's what all the energy experts... I won't talk about nuclear. I think you will cut off my head if you...
No, I understand. Yeah.
So that's the transition we are making. More renewables. That, of course, it's fine. But we won't get there by just installing ever more renewables. They will never be sufficient.
We need to ramp it up. What we need to do much more? I mean, what's the, or just a nuclear thing? I mean,
no, not just the nuclear. No. We need lots more. We need CCS. We need energy innovation.
There's no one quick solution.
No.
All right. The panels. The pedals. Sorry, not the panel. This is the panel. That's the pedal. The people in Delft and in London. Do you agree with the poll? Green. More renewables. Will they be the most effective to combat climate change? London, do you have pedals as well? Yes. Okay, so people tend to agree with the poll.
2 zeros there, 2 reds.
There's one a person in London very adamant for not agreeing. All right, so most people agree, and there's somebody with red and green together as well. It's something we have to keep on debating over. I think that's important. We need more debate on this. We need more information and people to know and be invested in this, because we have a part to play as well. I'd like to thank with a big... Okay, so somebody here is asking what does the audience think of nuclear? So in London and, I mean, it's a democratic debate. So in Delft and in London, please raise your paddles. Do you think that nuclear is a very important part of the solution? Then use green. If you think it's not a part of the solution, then use red. So London, what do you think?
Can't see London.
London?
It looks like we've got more green here than red. So I think part of the solution.
Part of the solution. Thank you so much, Georgie. Thank you. Good.
Oh yeah, okay.
All right. We need to wrap this up, people. Thank you so much. I hope it was an informative debate. I would like to thank, with a big round of applause, our 4 panelists here. Thank you so much. I think it's a pleasure, right? Remel, do you have anything to add?
It's clearly been a great night of debate, and everyone's been so crucial in the Twitter poll, and of course with their comments at #EnergyDebate. So thank you so much for everyone at home getting involved as well. Thank you.
And Georgie, do you have anything to add from London?
Just good night. It's been a brilliant debate. Thank you so much. And we'll hopefully see you guys soon. The conversation should continue.
Definitely. I think those were very wise words from Georgie. Thank you so much. We're pretty much out of energy here. Thank you, Delft University. Thank you, Imperial College London, for hosting and helping and enjoying this conversation. Please keep the debate going and use hashtag energy debate or not. At least the most important thing is we need to keep talking about the energy transition because it's something that affects all of us across the world, and everybody has different opinions and things, but we need to discuss together as a species. So thank you so much on behalf of me here at the Delft University of Technology and Georgie in London. Thank you so much and goodbye.